What if fundraising's not just about the bottom line? What if it is about who you become and what you believe in the process? And what if the journey is bigger than you and your ministry?
Welcome to Season 4 of It's Not About the Money. Join us as we examine elements of ministry fundraising through the unique lens of personal formation. Let's dive in.
Hey there, welcome back to It's Not About the Money. In today's episode, we are sitting down with Dr. Ekren Miller, an experienced fundraiser who has worked extensively in major gifts. But don't worry, this conversation isn't just for people pulling in $25,000 checks. We're breaking down the principles of relationship building, crafting the ask, and donor stewardship in a way that applies to any fundraiser. Yes, even those asking for smaller, more frequent gifts. We'll talk about how to overcome the fear of asking, why donors of all sizes want to be part of something meaningful, and how to make your fundraising conversations more natural and effective. So whether you're just starting out or looking to improve your approach, we think this episode is packed with practical wisdom to help you ask with confidence and cultivate stronger donor relationships. I am excited for this conversation. Andy, could you please do the honors of introducing our guest?
Absolutely. It is a distinct honor to welcome to the show Dr. Miller, as I knew him back when he was just Ekren. We worked for the same sending org, served in the same country, and earned our masters at Wheaton together. So we have some history here. During those years, one thing that always impressed me about Ekren was his heart for pioneering and his willingness to do whatever it took, whatever he felt the Lord was asking him to do. And this showed up as he dove into language learning and into accessing the very least reached groups in our area. But I confess that I don't know much about his personal fundraising journey or how his career has morphed into involving major gifts. So, Ekren, thank you for joining us, my friend. Let's start by talking about your early experience in support-based work and how that prepared you for the job that you have now. And tell us a little bit about your current role.
Yes, thanks for having me on the show, Heather and Andy. We're here to put the fun back in fundraising, right?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And fundraising is definitely a journey of learning. And I think about my background just starting out is, I was given a good-sized gift to study overseas when I was in college. And that resulted in something I couldn't believe, that someone would give me a gift to go do that, but just someone wanted to invest into what I was doing. And as I turned into other opportunities, looking to go overseas, whether short-term or long-term, most people start short-term. And I remember distinctly looking at like a letter that I wrote looking for $1,200 to go to Dominican Republic. And I thought this was just like a mountain and no way I would get to that. And then just little by little, it came in, and it grows your faith in what to ask for and how to do it. And I mean, with a number of small short-term opportunities, that changed into long-term for me, going overseas for 4 years, asking for a full year's salary, how that all works, to the point that people were very generous in their monthly giving, annual giving. I spoke one time, someone gave me $10,000 anonymously. I couldn't believe it. I mean, that made for an easy year in fundraising.
Yeah.
And actually, you want to do your best in everything, right? And fundraising is a skill that you can take your whole life. So here I see that God can use anything in your background in your life. So here I see that kind of prominent skill going through, even though I was also a teacher by trade, just earned my doctorate in education. I'm also a Division II men's golf coach. And so I've done different kinds of fundraising as it relates to going overseas, sport fundraising. And now I'm a major gifts officer or an advancement officer in philanthropy for a university. And so in major gifts, we're talking $25,000 or more. And and this kind of philanthropy giving is a profession. So basically, every nonprofit organization is going to want a fundraiser out there. Yeah. And the money makes it happen, but it's about how does that happen professionally is kind of what we're getting at today. and looking at kind of the pillars and stages of asking and giving. So I'm really excited to share my background, anything I can do to help people grow, to encourage them, and to say this is a profession and a future, and you can move an organization forward when you have the funding.
Yeah. Is there any way you would have predicted that this is what you'd be doing at this stage of your life?
No way. No, I was all education guy. I think COVID changed things for people, of course,
Yeah.
and it had me online learning, and I was online teaching the last 3 years. And, um, you know, you have different convictions in different stages of your life. And I just think this is a perfect fit for me right now, what I'm doing. I love what I do. I love the people that I'm meeting. I'm so impressed with the generosity, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. Awesome.
I really love that. I really love how you are just casting vision. I mean, we often tell people that the skills, the realities that they're walking through in fundraising are developing are forming them for the rest of life, right? It's not just this isolated season that you need isolated skills for. It's skills that really do carry into a lot of areas of life. And I really love that you cast vision for them that actually it might not even just be the soft skills, but the hard skills. There's actually something you could step into in fundraising for something even beyond yourself. So that's kind of fun.
Absolutely. It's an aspect of going overseas and the vision that you have. But it becomes, I mean, here I am 20 years later, where that was a major part, extending into a career doing it. Not for everyone, definitely. I talk to plenty of people who say, I'm so uncomfortable asking for money. How do you do it? And I said, I love it. I don't know. It's different for different people. So.
Well, and I'm really thankful because there are so many. I mean, because like you said, a lot of nonprofits, a lot of universities, a lot of these entities that provide such meaningful contribution to our communities and to the world are set up in a way that if they didn't have somebody fundraising, it would really put a significant cost on those receiving what they have to give, right? Like students or for nonprofits. I mean, they do fundraising so that they can give without asking, right? And so it's a really important role in our society.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of organizations out there that are completely dependent on somebody kind of going out there and sharing the vision and people catching that vision and wanting to be a part of that. Yeah. Well,
and we say it's a little different economic model as well. With we're on the model of giving and receiving, whereas a lot of the economy is buying and selling.
Yes.
So it's a little, jump the tracks. It's a little different kind of financial picture.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Well, Ekren, let's start with the big picture. So a little more philosophical. Why does fundraising, when we get down to it, often just feel like we're asking for money? And this is a two-part question. And then how did you manage to see it as an invitation rather than a burden? Because you seem to have a different angle than a lot of people do.
Sure. And I can look at 20 years of fundraising now, and you see it at first as like, I have to just raise this money and do this thing. But what you're actually doing is sharing what you've been called to do and sharing your mission of your organization, whatever that is. And I think if you just share the passion that you have for it and you're able to tell that story, it's very powerful. And people jump on board. People want to be a part of something that's going somewhere, something that it's really an investment. That's what I want to be clear about, is when you're asking for money, you're just asking for an investment. People invest in all kinds of different ways: stock market, real estate, Bitcoin, whatever that might be. And this is just, you're investing in people. So you're investing in people and organizations that you believe in. So that power of belief is a very big deal. And you're talking about return on investment. Your ROI is not always money. It can be what you want it to be when you're investing. So I see it as very relationship based and very much about investment. Because yes, there's a money component, but that relationship extends through the entire process of your pillars of asking and receiving. and it turns into this relationship, friendship that's very powerful, and a lot of things can come from it. So I don't see it as a burden, although there is discipline to it, definitely. I mean, it's some aspect of it is a little bit of sales, and some aspect, when I tell people what I do, they hold on to their wallet with their other hand. They're like thinking I'm gonna like
They're
talk
checking
to
their
them.
wallet. Yeah.
Yeah, they're checking, make sure I'm not pickpocketing.
Yeah.
And like I actually got called a couple names in my first few months doing this. I got called a chief beggar.
Oh, geez.
So I mean, you're gonna have some misinformation about what it is that you do.
Yeah.
And so it's important for you to have clarity about why you're convicted to do it and the reason behind it and the investment people are making.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The chief begging officer, that stuff. Well, I mean, I think people are searching, like, not to get, again, we're getting pretty lofty here, but people are searching for meaning in general, and you're offering them a chance to be a part of something that's meaningful. So whether or not
Yeah.
it's ultimate meaning, it is something meaningful.
And you can, there's kind of short and long term uh, fundraising and asking. I mean, there are short term goals, short term campaigns, short term mission that someone's called to, and there are long term campaigns, and there are long term pledges, and there's also planned giving, which is end of life and legacy giving, which is a whole nother aspect of it. But that's a
Yeah.
whole nother episode.
Right.
But as I age, and it's hard to like age yourself, Andy, because we're similar, and it's like people we're coaching are staying the same age. We're getting older, but we do have years built up, and like now I'm younger people, and also working with people, 20 years, 25 years ahead, who are looking at what has my life been, what's my legacy, how do I want to give and be remembered. And so I help people start scholarships and endowments as well.
That's cool. Yeah.
And that's actually how I introduce what I do to people. I mean, what my day job is that I help people start scholarships and endowments. I don't use the technical words like major gifts and advancement, because that confuses people.
Yeah. Yeah. You're being very clear with what you do at the end of the day. Yeah. That's great. Well, Heather has some questions, but I wanted to read something and get your thoughts on this. This is an excerpt from A Spirituality of Fundraising by Henry Nouwen. And if you haven't read this, dear listener, why not? It's only like 64 pages, and it's generously padded. So you could sit down and read it in 30 minutes. And I'm a slow reader. Okay. So this is from page 18. He says, I'm going to quote just a little bit here. In fundraising, people who work in the marketplace are often wiser than people who work in the church. Those who are involved in big business know that you never get much money if you beg for it. I remember visiting a successful fundraiser in Texas whose office was filled with beautiful things. I said, "How do you dare to ask for money in this office?" He replied, "My office is part of my way of approaching people. It's meant to communicate that I know how to work with money, that I know how to make money grow. This inspires confidence in the people I meet that their investment will be well used." This approach is not for everyone, and being surrounded by nice things is not the motivation for fundraising as ministry. Important here is that spiritually, this man is saying, I ask for money standing up, not bowing down, because I believe in what I am about. I believe that I have something important to offer. Without apology, he invites people to be a part of his vision. How does that strike you? Agreed, disagreed, caveats?
I like that. Nouwen's a fantastic writer and theologian, very deep. And so I'll read. I have all kinds of his books in my house as well. So there's this image that you know what? Even if you're asking for money, you don't have to look poor. Like there's a, like, let me share a story. So we had a consulting company come in, and they are able to kind of straddle both worlds of talking to our largest donors at the university and also talk to our fundraising team, our development team. With this guy for a couple of years, and he was not ready to give you a gift until you showed yourself professional enough. And so our organization had to up our game and show we were professional enough. And this last year at our university commencement, he gave a $2 million gift to our university. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I say to people, this is giving, but just some people have more zeros at the end.
Sure. Those zeros are significant.
But there is a matter of people who are business savvy, who work with money a lot more, and they're very comfortable talking about it. I find most people are very comfortable talking about it, especially if you're in the business world, because that's okay to talk about money day to day. Yeah. So to have that confidence and professionalism ready, I think is really important in fundraising, because it is a bit of a pitch, but also sharing what you're doing for the investment.
Isn't there a passage where Jesus himself praises like the savvy of the kind of the secular businessman of the world, and like they know how to get things done in a way that we don't necessarily do in the church?
Yeah, and then with money is such a huge topic. I think it's the number 2 most talked about topic in the New Testament besides the kingdom of God. And so money, and where your treasure is, there your heart is. So it's an incredibly important topic about possessions and treasures, and what does treasure in heaven mean versus treasure on earth? And then you can't take it with you, as they say. There's no hearse after a U-Haul. So, that's the other way around. No U-Haul after hearse. So you can't take it with you. So what do you do with it here? And sometimes it's not even generational wealth and giving. Like I've met families and couples who do not want to give to their children. They don't trust them with the wealth of the future, or they've squandered it. So people want to invest in different ways for that. But it's such an important topic, and I think it is deeply spiritual, to get back to your quote, because I think we were made to give. I think that God created us to have a giving component to our life, because that's what was instructed in Jewish law for tithes and offerings, and also in the New Testament of offering and giving. So, I think it's a core component of who we are to give, and it feels really good. Jesus said it's better to give than receive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Andy, that reminds me, do you remember? So the other day, Andy and I did a training at a church for some short-term teams that were going out for the summer in their fundraising. And after the fact, one of the dads was hanging around and made a comment to you, Andy, kind of along those lines, right? Like, what if the whole point of fundraising is giving us an opportunity to image God in the giving and in the providing, or something like that?
He was quoting something that one of our leaders had said as he was reading. I think it was, maybe, I haven't read it, but Paul Tripp has this book about, I think, redeeming money, and talks about that. Like, that was a quote from him. Like, we're not meant to accumulate. That's not why God gives us money, to hoard it and to enlarge our barns and our warehouses. We're meant to live in his image and to model. We're just a concourse. We're just a thoroughfare of, like, we receive and we give. Like anything else, like the life that we have in the ministry and the forgiveness we've received, all that stuff is meant to flow through us, not just kind of bottle up in us, right? So maybe money's the same way.
Yeah.
It reminds me too, like, and I wonder, Ekren, what you think about this. Like, is there some psychology to it when we approach a donor with, like, and maybe just our marketing is bad, or how we present ourselves is not quite up to par. Like, I think about, like, shopping, and I think about, and maybe I've used this analogy before, but if I'm looking for marinara and I see the label that this is imported from Italy and this is $6 for a pint of marinara. And then right next to it, I see the Great Value brand marinara. Even though essentially they're the same things, I'm gonna, because this is $2 and this is $6, this has got to be better, right? So is there some kind of how you present yourself? Is that part of it too?
Yeah, how you present yourself is part and parcel of the ask, and I mean the solicitation, the closure, everything, because it's the impression people get about you. If the impression right away is apologetic, like, I'm sorry I have to meet about this, but I am asking for that, like, awful. That's why they say never apologize when you're public speaking.
Right.
You know, that is not the first thing to do. So you want to always present yourself as confident, and you also need to believe in the ask and what's behind it. And I people will see through it. So I think to make sure you have your facts straight, and be very careful how you approach people as well, because people are funny about money. Let me tell you. And like I said, some people are very comfortable talking about it, and some people are like, "How dare you ask me for that amount?" I've had that happen too. So you have to be very discerning. So wise as serpents, innocent as doves. I think there's a huge discernment piece of how to approach donors.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said. It's not an act. It's not a facade. It's a natural outflowing of the confidence that you have in your own call to be there and the own vision that you have.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, and that, and this kind of goes back to the quote that you shared, Andy, but I think the word that came to mind when you were sharing that quote from Henry Nouwen is just this word dignity, and this dignity that we have as representatives of God, and just the dignity that we can take into those spaces, which I think kind of goes to what Ekren was saying as well. And then, Ekren, you also made a comment earlier about how there's a little bit of it that can feel like sales. And actually, Andy and I had a previous episode this season talking about trying to reframe sales for people, that it's not sleazy. And I think, as defined by Daniel Pink, sales is the ability to move people towards action. And really, it's just meeting a need that people have. And so, yeah, when you said that word, I was like, yep, we've talked about that. But you've also mentioned a couple of times just these pillars. And I know that that's kind of a structure that in your work you're able to move through. So maybe in line with that, what lessons have you learned in major gift fundraising that could apply to asking for smaller amounts? And maybe how is that contextualized in these pillars you've spoken of?
Sure. So I want to walk through it for the listeners about some professional aspects of fundraising and the stages. And then it might help people to categorize what they're looking at. That doesn't mean people have a software database they're working from like I do, but at least to track, in sales, they say the hot list, whatever. You might have leads, there's a lot of like sales jargon, but I want to talk through the 4 stages. And the first one is qualification. The second one is cultivation. See, I'm jumping to soliciting already.
Yeah.
But the third one is soliciting. So after cultivation, solicitation, the actual ask, and then after that is stewardship. So we'll talk about the pillars and it might be a cycle, because it is continuous for some people. But let's open up and talk about the first stage of qualification. So because this is a people-based endeavor, you're looking at actual people and entities. Now, it could be a business as well. And once you work with money more, you realize that there are some businesses who have to get rid of money. There are people, like I've learned, it's unbelievable. There are people with family trusts, and it's over a certain double-digit million, like 26 million in a family trust. They have to give money away. So there are situations and businesses that have to give away money. So all of this is in your qualification stage of you're making a list. Yes, you check it twice. I don't know about the naughty and nice, but you do make your list of, and I work with, say, entry-level fundraisers for my golf team of, okay, we're working on your list of soliciting for this fundraiser for the spring and our equipment needs and this and that. So they work with family, friends, previous coaches, dentist. You think of just all the people, and at a young age, like 18 to 21, their parents are helping them make a list. I've realized that they don't quite have all the adulting connections, to put it that way. They're still kind of under parental connections, you could say. And so the qualification stage is really important because you're looking at who, I'll use a word in our industry, it is affinity. So who has the affinity? That's what you're looking for. Who is grabbing on to what you're doing and interested? So it's very much discerning who wants to be a part of what you're doing. And I'm going to say that wealth doesn't equate to generosity. So just because someone you think is loaded, that doesn't mean they're going to be your biggest donor. But you are feeling it out. So your goal, so objectives, right? We're teachers. So your objective in the qualification stage is to find out, in my case with major gifts, in the next 18 months, can you ask them for a major gift? So that's what makes, that's the definition of to qualify someone. So I think, you don't always have that kind of timeline. It depends on your campaign or what you're doing. But you want to say, okay, do they have affinity? And can I ask them within X time frame? Do I think I can ask them?
What goes into that decision-making process? How do you determine, can I ask them?
Well, do you have a relationship? Is that close enough to ask? There's that. Have you seen their generosity in other ways? Have they given before to a similar organization or to you personally? Have they, like, if we're talking personal giving, have they given you a birthday gift before? Because they're engaged. You're looking for engagement, right? And this could be far and wide. So this is kind of the cold call stage, fishing, whatever you want to call it. I enjoy it. Like, I really enjoy the qualification stage because I've kind of been a person called to new areas. That's just what I do. I enjoy it. I want to see what's out there. I just hosted an event in Palm Springs. And after that, I got flown to Hawaii in my first year.
Nice.
So, I mean, that's because someone gave a 6-figure gift. So that was very nice. I was flying out to say thank you. But I mean, I went to some new places already in my first year that hasn't been done for a while for this office. So, qualification, it's kind of like fishing, but you need to cast the nets.
Yeah. So let's kind of, let's laser in on maybe what our listeners are thinking as far as, like, well, my personal fundraising. I mean, there's a certain amount of sifting, I guess, that is going to naturally occur as you're kind of required to identify. This is probably, a green light, yellow light, red light, however you want to categorize that. But I think in personal fundraising, man, I've said this myself, like, ask everybody, cast the net as wide as you can. Everybody, if it's hundreds, if it's thousands, ask them all, because every little thing helps. So let's say that there's an individual fundraiser that doesn't necessarily, let's say there's an individual fundraiser that doesn't necessarily have the runway before departure or before they're launching or whatever it is to do that. There's a time constraint. Like, how would you advise them to hone in, and, like, where should I really pour my effort into?
Well, I know in some cases you cannot go on the field until you're a certain percentage fundraised.
Exactly. Right.
So the more you're motivated to get over there, you better start asking and making those relationships. And when you start to make that list of qualifying, it's part and parcel with the next step of cultivating. Because as soon as you qualify someone as a maybe, it's almost better to get a no, like very clear no, because then that person is out. Okay, great. I can focus on on cultivation. I mean, the second pillar here, the second step in the cycle of,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to start spending time with these people, find out what they're interested in. In my case, I'm finding out what was meaningful for them at Bemidji State. They had an amazing university experience. What did that, was it hockey? We have Division I hockey. Was it that? Was it, biology? Were they a music major? Whatever it was in the university. Hear their story, spend time hearing their story. Cultivation, I think of when I was kind of in mid-year coming back in the summer from my time overseas. I wanted to continue to give back to my donors. And so I offered up a work day and I said, I am available, or multiple work days. I'm available these days to do whatever for your properties. And people took me up on it like crazy. They worked
yeah,
me.
They did.
They worked me. So I wasn't being used. But
yeah,
I
up
helped them. Yeah. And they have been investing in me for maybe years. So the fact that I was able to do something for them, or maybe they thought, man, this kid owes me.
Either way.
Whatever it was, but cultivation, what was really good. And you continue to cultivate. So in this second step, you're continuing to meet with people, hang out, do what they do, be around them, because it's going to get to the heart issues of what are you doing with your life, what matters to you.
Yeah.
And I actually, so you need to know yourself. So fundraising is very personal about your own personality and your strengths and weaknesses. So get to know yourself, take the Myers-Briggs, take whatever else you need to, the strength finders. But I know for me, I'm a little task focused. I'm a little TJ thinker judger guy. And I've learned to learn about FP, feeling people a little more. I know it's uncomfortable for me, but what I've learned, I set myself a personal challenge. So I'm going to tell you what that is. My personal challenge when I'm working with cultivation and FPs, or even players that I coach who are in FP, I'll say, you know what, Ekren, you're going to spend time with them until they end the conversation. I'm going to spend time with them until they end the meeting.
Nice.
And I am just tapping my foot and trying to get on to the next task.
Checking your watch. Yeah.
But it's hey, you have to sometimes put your personality aside and really be with someone until they feel comfortable sharing with you, or knowing that you're the kind of person they can trust to invest in.
Yeah. It's hard to fundraise if you aren't in the practice of just being with people and being in community and rubbing shoulders and getting to know them. So that's a challenge if somebody doesn't have a big network.
It's very personal, and some people want it transactional and just, here's an email, I'm giving you this, see ya. And some people want to hang out. So you got to discern through that. If you have a short list of people, you need to start with that, and you need to find leads from those people. And, it can be difficult, and it can be your timeline overseas or whatever you're doing, that maybe you don't have the support network, and you can ask. But I had an amazing support network overseas, to the point where one year I gave half of my entire year of fundraising to someone else. I mean, and that's not because of me. That's because God is good and, owns cattle on 1,000 hills. I just kept asking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there are people, if you don't have the money, don't let it stop you. There are people who will jump in to give. There's a lot to it. It's very personal, relational, and spiritual all at the same time.
Yeah. And what I love about what you said, Ekren, is you said put your own personality aside until people feel safe and trust you. And I just really love that I can tell that the emphasis behind that isn't this idea of play up to whatever people want you to be in order to secure the gift, right? That's not the vibe I'm getting from you, but instead just kind of this humility in kind of saying hey, I'll be maybe not I'll get smaller so you can be bigger, but just this like I'm going to defer to what I understand you need. I'm going to honor you in like the way you need me to show up, but in a really genuine way and not in a contrived or manipulative way. And I think that that's often the tension in fundraising. You know, that's why people have trouble with the idea of applying a framework or sales because they view it only through the lens of I'm manipulating you to get what I want. But there really is a way to carry yourself in the same principles that is actually self-forgetful and giving of the other person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and people can sense that.
Right.
So it's good to be upfront about what you're doing as well. It's not just hanging out with people. Like there is an eventual goal of solicitation. And people
Yeah.
get it. People who are in business and also understand philanthropy get it. It's like, okay, I am being cultivated right now, like meeting with the president, meeting with VPs. I'm going to these important things. Like I expect a big ask coming up. And I'm getting to the point, there's kind of some discernment with gift officers or professional fundraisers too that say, okay, yep, now is a time in their life I can do this ask. You know, maybe it is at age 73 when they have their minimum required distribution that they have to give out. But it could be just, okay, the timeline is there. They've met with all these people, and now is the time to ask. But yeah, you need to have it genuine, and you just have to be yourself. That's probably the best advice is if you're uncomfortable, they're uncomfortable. Like,
yeah, absolutely. They can absorb some of your anxiety and your tension if you're not comfortable with it.
yeah. And if you want to, start with, a face-to-face appeal is the most effective. So when you are getting into the ask, which is getting into our third stage or our third pillar here of solicitation, that is the most effective. Not all people want to be communicated with the same way either.
Sure.
So I think it's best to say if you set out for a fundraising relationship and stewardship, just be upfront about it.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I know let's take a dentist. I know you've been our family dentist this long. This is what I think I'm called to do in my life right now. Can you jump on board and be a part of it? This is what I'm asking for. Be specific with the dollar amount. I'm asking you for $150 a month for the next 2 years. Do you think you can commit to that?
And then leave it.
And the first one to talk loses, they say.
Yeah.
No, but the reality is when you you lead up to the true solicitation point, you let them talk first.
Yes. Yeah.
Always.
Totally.
Always, because you're leading up to the point of that ask when you're crafting it. And yeah, you just be honest and authentic. People know it's coming. You're both relieved when the ask is done, to be honest. So people don't want to feel like they're buttered up over and over and like,
yeah, stop buttering, go dairy free.
Let's get to it.
Well, let me dip back into cultivation just for a second as I think about the lens of our kind of more individual fundraisers. Like, let's say that they have donors that are giving very sporadically or occasionally. Do you have any thoughts about how we move someone like that into a more consistent relationship, giving pattern?
Yes, I work with all kinds of giving in all aspects now in my day job. So we have a director of annual giving, and then those people kind of, how do we move someone from annual or sporadic giving into pledging? Like full on pledge, full on big gift into the major gift category. Because people they have what I said before, affinity. So there is some level of it. So we're finding out how to cultivate sporadic giving into a solid, committed gift, right? So I think on your part, do the numbers of what you think. Now, you don't have access to a wealth rating like our organization uses Razor's Edge. So there are wealth ratings in there. There's a background. You can look up public knowledge of people's real estate holdings, all kinds of things. However, you might not have all that information. So you could talk to people if they know them about their capacity. We use that word as well. What is the capacity of a donor? But you'll want to make sure that's clear when you craft your ask, because that needs to be appropriate for their wealth rating.
Sure.
How does that play into, because something you said that really struck me earlier was just this idea that wealth does not equate to generosity. And so how does kind of like knowing that play into the way that you match the ask with the capacity?
Yeah, I think it's what kind of objective or campaign are you asking for? I think there are different kinds of giving is what we're getting at. Is like, someone will love to give you 30 a month for a year and just be fine with that. And that's just not a hardship. And they're a core giver. Keep them, love them, steward, and that's all you're going to get. And that's okay. Like, you need that consistent, you need backbone giving in your mission. You have to have that, because that's going to set your budget. It's going to set so much. There are just people that are beyond small gifts. And that's why I focus on major gifts. Is okay, they're not just sporadic once in a while. They are ready to start a scholarship. They are ready to, in the largest sense, we call it a transformational gift. And that would be $1 million or more. So it's like people who are fundraising to go overseas aren't raising $1 million, but organizations are. And and some people are ready for a transformational gift ask, which takes potentially years to get to that stage of cultivation. So I think the smaller the amount, the less the cultivation.
Yeah. And I guess also related to cultivation, before we kind of switch gears to speaking more about crafting the ask, what are some recommendations you would have for people to just have in mind as they desire to build trust and rapport, whether that's over a short term or over kind of like years of stewardship?
Yeah, I like to tell people that everyone has a gift. You're all gifted at something. Everyone's good at something. And you have that gift to share, whether it's hospitality or, helps, whatever that might be. And so just love on people and be with them and kind of look for the need with them and kind of look for who would you want to be supporting you when you go overseas or when you're doing this. Who do you want on your top list? And I remember a sermon I heard years ago of, when Paul's ending one of his letters, it's listing all the people who helped him. And the person explaining the message was, ditch your stuff, bring the list. It's not about stuff. It's about who's on your list that got you there. So if you can just think of, wow, I want this business I want to spend more time with this person and this person. I can give this. I can give my time to walking their dog. Very out of the clouds practical stuff. Okay, I can babysit. I can help rake a yard, shovel snow. I can be there for them. It'll turn into a powerful relationship. I have great relationships with donors 20 years later I will not forget them.
Yeah.
I will not forget their generosity. And they will not forget supporting me because their treasure was where their heart is.
Yeah.
So
it sounds,
there is a cool relationship.
It sounds a lot more like a relationship, like a partnership and not just a sponsorship. Yeah. And it sounds like we need to be comfortable circling back to people after a while. Would you say that's true? Like, just because someone starts out giving $100 here and there, maybe once they've seen, wow, Ekren really is faithful in how he communicates with me. Wow, I'm really catching a vision for what he's doing. does it make sense to then kind of re-engage? Maybe you're cycling back to a qualification, or maybe you're, I don't know, you're continuing the cycle.
Yeah. And a practical step for qualifying people, the very first step is if you don't hear
Mhm.
back or have a reciprocal invitation with 3 touches, move on.
Hmm.
Okay.
This is text, email, or call. If you do not have a reciprocal response in that qualification stage, just move on. And that's
Hmm.
okay. You can keep them on a list, but don't spend your efforts. You only have so much time and effort.
Hmm.
Work on your cultivation list, people who are already qualified. And if someone, let me tell you, Andy, if someone's given you anything, there's potential
Hmm.
Yeah.
because at
Yeah.
some point they had affinity for something.
Yeah.
The
Right.
hardest is the never givers.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is a total cold call. Like I make these calls every week. Is okay, total cold call. I think this is the right number. You run into you don't have the right contact info in this
Right.
case. But does someone have any affinity for the institution or the organization? But
Yeah.
you do want to make sure you've combed through the who's who.
Something you said just a moment ago has made me curious. You said something to the effect of like, make sure this is a person you want to like have on your team, or this is a person that like you'd love to go through this with or whatever to partner with. Have you ever had people that were their capacity was large, so they had money to give, but you were like, you know what? I don't think there's alignment, so I'm not actually going to ask. Has that ever happened for you?
Yes, and I would say in my professional role now, because I am still in my, I guess, hometown, not where I was born, but a relationship that's too personal, I don't want to ask for
Mm,
that amount of money.
Hmm.
So I guess that's when I would say no. And maybe if it's a business or personality that I just don't want to work with, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to have to kiss up. Like, and if they don't treat me well, like it's not worth the money.
Hmm.
right. Yeah, and in personal fundraising, we will coach people sometimes that sometimes people's giving can come with some expectation, and sometimes that expectation is fair. They expect to hear from you. They expect to have insight into what's happening in your ministry. But other times those expectations can actually feel more unhealthy, like an expectation to know really minutely what you're doing with your budget. There can be some like wonky expectations. And so I didn't know if working with people that had substantial gifts, whether that sometimes came with this kind of incredible burden of
Strings
expectation.
attached.
Yeah,
Oh
like
yeah.
strings attached. Yeah.
Oh, there is, and you definitely want to be careful of people who will come in with their gift and try and run your organization or your mission or whatever,
Hmm.
because that's a very fine line to walk. And I don't deal with our largest portfolio donors, but when people give a large amount, they know they have power and they want to say of what's going on. You do need to guard against that. And then, there are going to be people who are upset with your organization at some point too. So you'll need to deal with donor fallout
Hmm.
and mending fences and patching. And I've had good and not so good experiences on both sides of that so far. Um, yeah, but to watch out for that, because there's all kinds of fraudulent activity with money. Let's be honest. There's embezzlement. There's fictitious giving. There's laundering. So there's just people need to know you're a trustworthy source and your organization is a trustworthy source. So I will have
Yeah.
people who are asking to give and immediately they say, how much is going to your admin fund?
Sure. Yeah. So you
How
need to be
much are
informed
you
about
actually
that.
getting? Yeah.
Yeah.
How much are you getting? How much are
Yeah.
your players getting? What they actually think they're fundraising for. A lot of people don't want to raise for overhead or other people's salaries.
Yeah. How important is transparency in those cases?
You better know. You need you need to know, and you need to tell them.
Yeah.
And
You got to
and
be straightforward.
if the 5% charge stops their giving, so be it.
Yeah.
Because that's, most organizations will take a percentage for administrative fee. That's factual.
It's reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's industry standard. So just,
Yeah.
it's okay, but just be
Yeah.
upfront.
Yeah. Well, let's get down to what we are talking about a little bit already. We kind of hinted at it in the solicitation, the actual ask. What are the essential components for an effective ask at any level?
Well, great question. So let's start at the smallest level. Is you you need to know what you're doing and why, and for how long, and the amount of money. So what you're doing and why, and how long, and the amount of money. So when you know all that, you can present it to someone in a small way. Say you're asking for 50 a month. I recently took on a new person because I was convicted. I need to take on a new person to give. And I was able to help them on their pitch to me. It was funny. It was kind of full circle.
Yeah.
We got to it. And they say in recruiting, because I do college golf recruiting, is like the hardest part is to talk about money. Don't ever forget to talk about the money part. Make it as standard as any other thing you're showing, facilities, schedule, whatever. So when you're asking, you do want to have that clear. So yeah, at the end of the conversation, I was like, okay, how much do you want? How long is this for? It's just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's be clear. It's
Prompting.
totally fine to talk about
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm the one who wanted to give to you.
Yeah.
So, so in the smaller gift giving, just have your answers ready. I especially put in timeline there because people want to know how long they're giving. They don't want a perpetuity gift.
Right.
I mean, that when I deal with scholarship and endowment, it is invested in a market, and there's a into perpetuity giving after 25,000. So they know that it will continue giving. But
Yeah.
in the case of just a short term 1 year, can you commit to this is way easier than saying, can you commit to 50 and I don't know how long I'll be overseas or whatever.
Yeah.
That's tough. Now, I've always said that your best supporters are going to support you through anything. Doesn't matter if you're overseas or at home, they'll understand. But I do like to give a timeline. I think that you should.
Because the affinity is so high.
Yeah, you're close. They know life has its ups and downs and uncertainties and illnesses and relationships and all that. They'll support you.
Yeah.
But you definitely need to communicate the changes that are being made, if there are, in your life direction.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not just going overseas. You're taking a group of people with you through this journey. They are like sometimes living vicariously through your dream and calling of doing that.
For sure.
They can't because they're not, whatever the reason, single, mortgage, dog to take care of, lawn to mow. Like there's so many commitments that once you get back into Americana life, like the people who are the unfettered and free are the most able to make those quick decisions. So you want to make sure you're always communicating what you plan to do. So that's my answer to explain about a smaller ask. Yeah. See what happens.
I think that's really helpful. What, why, how much, how long? That feels like a super
bite size.
Yeah, so bite-sized and really something that can, I think, fit into a 30-second elevator pitch and then extend into a half hour or, hour and a half presentation. Yeah, so that's really great. I'm curious, Ekren, we were recently having a conversation where they said no is a gospel answer, which I think we can tend to forget. But how do you personally handle getting a no? Any tips?
Yeah,
do you ever get no's?
Of course. Yes, of course. How do you handle rejection?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. I think in professional fundraising, or kind of the mantra that I came up with for myself, is go until it's a no.
Yeah.
Make people say no to you. Not be mean so they say no. This is like,
Yeah.
Keep presenting your need, make the need known, always make the need known, and then walk with them until it is a no. And then you do know as a knowledge.
Yeah. Well,
But
what does that do to you as a person when they reject you?
you can't take it personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, don't don't take it personally. It just, people are giving in all kinds of different ways, and just you might not line up with their convictions or financial picture. Giving goes in and out because people's financial situation changes. So,
Yeah.
you know, I have people who are telling me, I do want to start an endowment, but not right now. Okay, well, they're kind of on a burner for who knows how long.
Yeah.
They say, the the most clear is, I'm not interested in giving to your organization right now.
Great. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. And you handle it professionally. You don't go and
Yeah.
cry about it. You don't take it personally. It just, okay, they're not, you can't get beat up about it.
How do you feel like that? Do you feel like that would feel the same? Think back to Ekren that was fundraising for his support-based work. Does it feel any different for you to be asking on behalf of your own mission and considerations versus asking on behalf of an organization? Or would you say that you feel like you could handle those the same?
I think I'm pretty similar. I know some people who say, I couldn't ask for my own salary. I could only ask for an organization. But I've done both. So I'm comfortable with both. I'm asking on behalf of what I believe in, and I think they're good things and great opportunities. I wouldn't be the person I am without the school I went to. I can reflect on that. And I don't want to guilt someone in if they're on the fence and say, don't you think this university has been this part of your life and meant a lot to you? You don't have to really necessarily go there, but so people are being sold to all the time,
Yeah.
everywhere. So you just need to handle it professionally and just be clear. And when you're getting to the point of solicitation, like I said, if you can schedule a face-to-face and just tell them the purpose of this meeting is to go over my solicitation with you, or to go over my request. I mean, if they say yes, that's huge. That is a green light. They're going to give. They
Yeah.
will. They didn't
Yeah.
meet with you to just say no. So just
Right.
think, if you can get a face-to-face, it's a yes.
And you're clear. It's so important to be clear up front.
Yeah, and confident. And know this is what you're called to do. This is our need. We're excited about it. Can you partner with us?
Yeah.
And let them talk. Let them just talk about it, because there are needs in all kinds of organizations.
Yeah. Well, it strikes me that if we're offended when people say no, then we're casting vision for the wrong thing. We're casting vision for ourselves. It's not about you. We're casting vision for a mission, for an organization, for a purpose. And if they don't align, if there's no affinity, it's not, they don't have affinity for you as a person. There's just no connection there for that particular cause.
Right. And they may be just over expended in their giving already.
Yeah, right.
There are plenty of people who give to multiple organizations, and they can't take on one more person, or they have these unseen expenses or medical, or you just have to listen to them about what it is. But I would say they are different kinds of asking for your own personal and asking for an organization.
All right, let's take it into the last pillar, stewardship. What do you think is the most important factor in stewarding donor relationships well?
The most important factor is, don't forget people who got you there. Is always remember them and always thank them, and just don't forget to say thank you at a minimum. And I was kind of convicted of that the last, I don't know, couple of years. Is like, people do stuff for me all the time. I need to just say thank you. And people are expecting that. But it also, builds in that thankfulness part of your life, which is, gratefulness is really important. It's a nice counterbalance to bitterness. I mean, if you're grateful and thankful, you can't be bitter at the same time. Stewardship is so important because what I'm telling you not to do, don't make people feel like a project. And nobody wants to feel used. So you always want to thank them. And I've learned there are a lot of creative and cool ways to thank people in the stewardship phase. And I personally, they track all of my, what I'm spending my time doing, as far as an action item. So my action items as a gift officer are mostly in cultivation. Okay. They're the least in stewardship. So what I'm telling you is I have to really be careful to steward people properly.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of end of the cycle, which could start a new cycle, but you need to thank them. You need to honor people. You need to make sure that they know their investment mattered. And it's not fluff. It's genuine.
I imagine that it's, as far as your expenses and energy as a fundraiser, as a department, it's much more costly to cultivate and qualify and solicit than it is to steward. That.
Yes.
It doesn't take much effort just to keep those people around rather than find new people.
Yes, there's so much energy and effort into those stages. You're correct. Stewardship is a whole branch that we have to pay attention to, though, so people continue to engage.
Yeah.
So at minimum, they need a written thank you. So this is practical tips. Minimum. Even more personal touch, a phone call. I get it. We text and people, maybe a text is fine. Okay, there's another minimum step is a text. But a number of people want a call. It is more personal, and you should, especially with someone who is one of your big donors or just backbone donors.
What if it's Gen Z to Gen Z, Ekren?
Well, if you call me, it must be an emergency.
Yeah.
Why would you ever call me?
Yeah.
So I know there are different communication forms. You want to consider, I know it's a lot to consider in fundraising, but you want to consider the age you're working with. And if you're working with someone 50 and older, you have to call them. You have to. That's what's expected. And you need to be ready to spend time with people and hear from them. You can host people for dinners. You can make awards for them. You can make people feel special in all kinds of ways. I deal in the university sense, we honor people. So we honor people with their lifetime achievement awards, with plaques, with outstanding alumni, all kinds of different things. We have a legacy society for people who have given in planned giving for part of their estate or were in their will. So you want to properly honor people at this stage of stewardship.
Yeah. And Andy, you made the comment that you likely spend more energy in the qualifying cultivation stage, and then, maybe not as much in the stewardship. And I think that's because in those stages, you're building a lot of trust and rapport. And ideally, at the stewardship level, if you're able to just maintain that trust, then I think what you said is true. But if something happens to break trust, then I think it actually can be quite a lot of work. And so I think that even just speaks to what Ekren's saying. It's so important to, even if you don't have as much time to give to this element, it's so important to do it well, or it's going to start demanding more time.
This is why stewardship and the whole cycle is relational and not just transactional.
Right.
If you think of it as just transactional, we're not buying and selling widgets. We're not just driving through and getting a cup of coffee and getting it and moving on. So much of our society is set up for transactional. And we need to keep in mind that this is relational and people need to continue to be communicated with.
Mm-hmm.
And given gifts. Give them stuff.
Yeah.
There's if you go overseas, there's all kinds of unique, cool things you can get. And people love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I was watching this video the other day about, and maybe I think Heather, you shared it with me. At its core, it was about body language. It was about communicating through body language. But the guest was saying the way that one of the ways that you authentically pour into people and you build relationship is by just in the moment genuinely thinking about them, like reflecting to them when you thought about them. So it doesn't have to be I'm gonna send you a postcard from the Great Wall or whatever it is. It could be just, hey, I was walking down the market and I saw this, and I know that just reminded me of you. And just shoot them a quick text or a quick message. That feels very intentional, very authentic, very personal. Not here. I'm sitting down in my job of sending out a bunch of kind of canned texts. Like this is like a one-off text that I'm sending that just kind of reminds them of you. So I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think that could be that could translate over to fundraising world too?
100% do that. That is fantastic, because you need to show people you're thinking of them, even in your quote busyness overseas.
Yeah.
People don't necessarily expect that, but wow, you thought of me. Like my wife and I are supporting people in Turkey right now. And I was looking, I don't know how it came up, but I saw a design for Turkish tulip embroidery. And I said, this is so cool. I don't know how I can get it, but I'm going to ask them if they could find me something with Turkish tulip. And so they went on one trip and they came back and they gave me a plastic bag with the design on it. And I said, that's so cool that you found that. I can't believe that you remembered me. I'm not even a huge donor.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the end of it. Like a year later, I want to say, they brought back an entire tapestry of a Turkish tulip pattern, like a tablecloth. Yeah.
Wow.
And now it's in our house as like an amazing, showpiece.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
And so I mean, it was a small request, but they took it seriously.
And how did that make you feel as even one of their minor donors?
Well, Andy, I had to feel, so that was a challenge.
You had to find a way to resuscitate your heart of stone.
That's right. It was like, wow, they remembered, they considered me. That was very meaningful. And that increased our relationship.
Yeah.
So we maintained the giving and I was very impressed.
And even if you don't increase your giving or whatever, like you're thinking of them every time you walk past that.
Exactly.
That's significant.
Yeah. You're encouraging them, praying for them. And that's what it is you're building a team. Whatever it is, you're building a team to whatever your metaphor is, raising the wall or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Holding the rope.
Yep. Exactly. So your stewardship is so important. And our office sends out chocolates. We send out cards. We have a budget for it. I'll tell you what, carve out money for it because it's that important of thanking people needs to be done right. But if you don't have money, we're going back to the initial stage of you can still do things for people. You can host a meal. You can
do a work day.
Snow.
Do a work day.
Yeah.
Shovel snow. Because people, guess what? I mean, I'm a property manager too. So
of course you are.
Yeah, take on too much. But I mean, I basically, like in my earlier years, like I gave everything to go overseas, like all my money, all my stuff. Like I was totally committed. I came back with like $1,200 to my name. So it's like, you can't outgive God. So when you're going to give, you're going to get back so much more. And but properties don't take care of themselves. So you can always help people with properties.
Yeah.
Well, I suspect that people picked up on your commitment, whether or not you told every single person I've sold everything, that came through in how you were communicating with them and interacting with them. That's my suspicion.
It was a challenge. I also learned to not judge your donors because One time I was at a donor's house and I kicked back in their chair and I said, "This is a really nice leather chair. Like, just curious, how much is it?" And it was like $1,800 for a leather chair and a footstool. And I said, "Oh my goodness, I could get back overseas for this." And that was the wrong thing to say. That
Oops.
was the wrong.
Yeah. There's
Because
blunt Ekren coming out. Yeah. No
there,
filter.
you got to be careful there. Just you need to treat your donors like money has very different levels of what is expensive or not for people. So just don't comment on that kind of stuff. It's very relative. Yeah.
All right. So as we kind of come to the end of our conversation, I'm curious, is there kind of one lesson from major gift fundraising that has surprised you that could totally apply to someone raising personal support?
I think my biggest happy surprise in major gift fundraising is how generous people are.
Yeah,
Unbelievable. I've worked with fundraising for years in the tens of thousands of dollars. I am now working with hundreds of thousands of dollars into the millions in giving. And it's unbelievable. The money is out there. The donors are out there. It's a matter of finding who that is. So I have a lot more growth mindset than fixed mindset, maybe, of just people are there and they are generous. They just need to be engaged with it and have affinity.
Yeah.
So I've been pleasantly surprised. And maybe it's just in my first year, there's low hanging fruit, but I do find it more and more as encounter other people that people are very generous.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, as a final word, what else would you say to our listeners as they persevere in support-based ministry? Emphasis on persevere.
It's just one part of it, because if you're language learning or you're building your team to go overseas or you're building an organization, whatever that might be, it is work. And so to discipline yourself to set up work times for it, don't just act on your feelings. This is when I feel like doing it or not, even though that is maybe the best way to do it when you're motivated. But there is some certain discipline that you need to do. So to be disciplined, to persevere, and to also remember you don't know how long your calling is going to be for an overseas thing or whatever you're doing.
Right.
You don't know. Doors close, doors open, things happen, health things happen, life is short. So, you just need to go for it. Like, you work hard and enjoy what you're being called to.
Yeah.
And it can be a grind sometimes, don't get me wrong. That's part of the discipline of it. But, as they say, you carry your disciplines until they carry you. So if you can be disciplined about fundraising as well, it will carry you.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we come across all different types of people. I think we've almost got to a point where we can identify some archetypes in how people approach fundraising. But there's definitely a certain group of people who will approach it like, well, I'm gonna, if in our situation, right, if the Lord wants me to be over there, He's gonna make it happen. But I hear a tenacity in your response. Like, you also have to just get after it.
You do, and not like Strength Finders, whatever. Activator's my number one. So it's like
that checks out.
I'm so ready to take something on and start something up. Not everyone is that way, and that's okay. Maybe you need to find an activator personality and partner with them. And hey, I don't really have the giddy up. Can you help me to think of ideas to do it, or go with me to do this thing, or set this up for me, or whatever? People have different administrative gifts too. And so if you're doing an event, that requires all kinds of administration. So find someone to help you with that.
who you will not be offended when they come to you and say, "Hey, how's it going? How have you been doing? And what have you been doing?"
Yeah,
You need
exactly.
someone that can have that candid conversation with you.
And when I looked at long term, that was a different kind of ask. Definitely very different than a short term. Here's a 2-week trip wherever. Yeah. When I looked at long term, I was thankful for the organization I was with, who had a person who called and checked on me. It was probably every 3 weeks, monthly, and just said, "How's it going? How are your levels? You talking to people?" Like, I would not be where I was for 4 years if it wasn't for that initial person checking in on me, because it was kind of like a year mentorship. I took a year to actually raise what I needed to get. So I took a while to do it, but it was done right and fully funded but I needed that mentorship. So I think finding someone to keep you accountable, super important.
Yeah. Good.
And your show is awesome. I want to say, just opening up the world to people about it and encouraging them. Like, just thank you for what you're doing with this podcast.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Share it to all your friends.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Heather has our final question, and that's often one of our favorites.
All right. So, Ekren, you've been invited to give a TED Talk, and you take the stage in just 10 minutes, and you cannot speak on major gift fundraising. What's your talk going to be about?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, 2 things come to mind. So, in a serious realm, I would cover the results of my doctoral dissertation, which was, factors that make a nationally ranked Division II NCAA men's golf team. So it's like exactly what I'm doing as a head coach, but I interviewed 14 nationally ranked coaches. 3 of them won a national title, and I know what it takes to win a national title. So I would talk about that and talk about competitive advantage and all that goes into it, and administrative support and the factors I found. So that would be like my kind of business TED Talk.
Yeah.
But if I had a for fun TED Talk, because it is the season, I would talk about how to make maple syrup.
Oh, yes. Really?
So I'm a maple syrup producer, and our trees are tapped right now, and it's the season.
That sounds like I'd like to try that.
Oh, yeah. Very
so
cool.
I can walk you through every step.
Well, when I say I'd like to try that, let me be clear. I would like to sample your products.
Yeah, I would like to sample the end product. I would not like to check the taps every day, put all the sap into a container, boil it down from a 40-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
And then have your product 40 gallons to 1 gallon of syrup.
Yes. No wonder it's so expensive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Time intensive. Now there are ways around it, reverse osmosis machine, whatever else, but the fact remains it's labor intensive.
Yeah.
Very cool though. I mean, less calories than honey and all the antioxidants. It's an amazing natural sweetener.
Yeah.
Man, the problem with this question is it leaves me
wanting to ask
more. Hopeful that people will actually do this, that they will actually get in touch with TED and like give their talk.
Yeah.
So fun. Well, Ekren, thank you so much for your time. This has been such a fruitful conversation. I think there's really so many elements that apply to personal fundraising. I'm just really thankful that you've taken the time out of your schedule to chat with us.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. So good to see you again, too.
Thank you. I appreciate both of you and what you're doing. And I'm just glad to contribute and be able to help some people and encourage them in what they're called to do, too.
It's Not About the Money is presented by Provisio Fundraising Solutions. Provisio equips support-based workers with flexible training, practical resources, and one-on-one coaching. Find out more at provisiofundraising.com.